All right. Hey, Danny, thank you for coming on. Today's guest is Danny Coleman. He's a certified peer specialist, a speaker, he's a preacher, and an author who speaks to resilience, recovery, and hope. He's the founder of Devastation to Appreciation and the creator of Fuel, FUEL framework. Danny, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm so excited to hear your story and what you have to offer.
Ye Yes, sir, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, man. So, like any good story, I would love to hear kind of how it all started for you. How did you know this is what you were gonna do?
I had a great childhood coming up. The biggest problems I had in my childhood was being bullied at school because of my weight. I've always been battling weight issues my whole entire life. Coming through school, I got bullied a lot, so I tried to keep it under control and tried to watch my weight
Mhm.
best I could. But other than that and the whippings I got when I acted up was about the only problems I had in my childhood.
Sure. Okay. So,
But
were you at like a public school or private school? What kind of school were you
I
at?
was at a public school, yes, sir.
Okay, got
I
you.
went in
Okay.
private K through 5th, and then I went to public from 6th through 12th.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And then
Yes,
what
sir.
was this bullying seems to come up a lot in these conversations. So tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
It was always about my weight.
Okay.
I got
Yeah.
called fat kid, I got
Mm,
called Coburg because I love to drink milk at lunch, so I drink about 6 or
sure.
7 milks every day for lunch,
Okay.
and
Wow.
because of that, there was a guy that would call me Coburg. He said, "If I cut you, I bet you'd bleed milk."
Oh my oh my goodness. The kids are crazy. Oh my gosh.
So
Okay.
yes, sir. So I got picked on heavily in school.
Yeah. Okay. How did you cope with it? How did you deal with it?
The way I coped is I had a great-grandmother that I stayed with most of my youth until she
Okay.
died when I was 16.
Mm, gotcha.
She died of cancer.
Okay.
And my whole childhood, when I'd come home from school every day on the bus, I'd get home and she'd have my favorite food waiting on me, grilled cheese and mashed potatoes and gravy.
Yeah. Okay.
So I coped with food. That's what I always turned to. I turned to sweets and food.
Gotcha. Okay. So how did you, I guess, like how did middle school, high school, how did all that end? I mean, I know your grandmother died and was it still weight still an issue?
It was still an issue. In
Okay.
in high school, I weighed probably, I don't know exactly because I didn't go to the doctor a lot and weigh, but I probably weighed 400 pounds.
Okay. Wow.
So I
Yeah,
got picked on a lot.
for sure.
And then when I got out of school, I kind of really lost control of it because I didn't have nobody to pick at me. I always tell people, kids will pick at you to your face, but adults talk behind your back.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't have nobody to hold me accountable. So I really lost control of it. And I went to the doctor one day for a checkup. And she said, "Mr. Coleman, do you know how much you weigh?" And I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "You weigh 527 pounds."
Oh my goodness.
And I
Yeah.
like to hit the floor. I like to pass out because I couldn't believe it. Because I was still walking, still doing everyday activities. It was difficult, but I was able to do them.
Yeah. Okay. So would you say that's like the first time you figured your weight was a problem? Like that was the first time,
It
oh shoot.
is.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That was the first time.
Okay. Yeah. So,
And she even went as far as to tell me, she said, "Have you ever considered having weight loss surgery?" And I said, "I don't know anything about it."
okay.
She said, "Well, I want you to look into it." She said, "Because I think you're a candidate." She said, "It's not a quick fix, but if you'll do the work, it's well worth your time to do it." She said, "Because if you don't do it, you're going to die prematurely."
Oh my goodness. How old were you when
So
this happened?
I was in, let's see, this was 2011. So once that happened, she told me, she said, "For you to get clearance for weight loss surgery, you got to go see a heart doctor." So
Okay.
I said, "Okay." So she sent me up with a heart doctor, and he was a foreign doctor from Augusta that had came to our town to do heart patients once a month. And I never will forget when he walked in the room, it was like traumatic throwback to high school. Because when he walked in the room, the first thing out of his mouth was, "My God, you're fat."
Oh my gosh. Danny.
And
It's
I was like traumatized again, like, all over again, like being picked on in school.
okay.
And he said, "If I don't approve you, you're gonna die." He said, "So you're getting approval."
Okay.
So he gave me my approval I needed to get the surgery done. So I got clearance for surgery. They told me that the weight loss doctor told me, he said, "Just like your doctor told you," he said, "this isn't a quick fix." He said, "So if you want this surgery, you got to prove to us you're serious." He said, "You got to lose 40 pounds within 6 months, or we're not going to do the
Okay.
surgery." I said, "Okay." I said, "I've never been one to back down from a challenge." I said, "So I'll do it." I said, "I'm serious. I want this done." So we started working with a weight loss. I started working with a weight loss doctor that was in his same clinic practice with him. And in 6 months' time, I lost 100 pounds. So
Amazing.
once they saw that, they said I was their biggest loser in pre-op that they've ever had. They said they knew I was serious and they was ready to do surgery.
Wow. That's
So
amazing.
July 3rd of
Okay.
2012, I had weight loss
Yeah.
surgery. I had the gastric bypass done. And I told all my family and friends, I said, they could let me come home July 4th after I had the surgery. And I said, I'm declaring independence from this unhealthy lifestyle. I am changing today.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. So you kinda had this, like, wake up call. Like, you could have just been like, "Well, I'm gonna die," like, whatever, or you're like, "I have to get my stuff together or, like, I'm not gonna live very long." Like, you kinda had that choice
That's
coming.
right. And
Okay.
the thing is, like, this wasn't the only battle I had faced because, like, I had the physical health problems, but I also had mental health challenges as well that stemmed from the physical problems.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about those.
Okay. Back in 2003, I was back around my heaviest. I mean, I was over 500 pounds and I was working a tech
Okay.
support call center.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, I said, it's very important what you put into your eyes and your ears because in the moment that you have a weakness and you can't control yourself, that's what's going to come out. So coming up, I was raised by my grandmother in church. And whenever I had my breakdown on my job, I got up and put my phone into break mode and went cubicle to cubicle asking each call tech person, were they saved and on their way to heaven?
Right. Okay.
And if they said
So you were
yes,
at a
I
call
said,
center.
God, I was at a call center. That's right. I
Okay.
was supposed to be
Gotcha.
taking
Okay.
tech support calls at this time, and I put my phone in break and was going cubicle to cubicle. So each one that I asked, if they said yes, they were on their way to heaven, I'd say, God bless you, and I'd go to the next person.
Right.
If they said no, that they
Okay.
weren't, I said, you're going to hell, and I'd go to the next person.
Okay.
And
So
so my manager,
okay.
it didn't take him long. He realized that wasn't my normal self.
Right. Okay.
So he called me off the floor and he called a couple of techs to come in and talk with me. And he said, I think you need to be evaluated at the hospital. So they sent me to my local hospital to the emergency room. And when I got there, I met my first mental health clinician, and she come in to evaluate me. And it didn't take me long to figure out if I told them what they wanted to hear, they'd let me go home and I wouldn't have to go nowhere. So I
Mm.
told them,
Okay.
I said, I just had a religious moment. I'm okay. I just want to
Okay.
go home and rest.
Yeah.
So I was sent home that day. When I got home that night, it was like I thought I could read people's minds.
Mm.
So I would get up and do random stuff in our house, and my mom and dad noticed that that wasn't my normal self either. So my dad said, "What they say at the hospital?" I said, "Well, they said I was fine. They sent me home." He said, "We're gonna go back and double check." So he took me back to the hospital. And while we were going to the hospital, he said I pinched my little brother, and that I wasn't a violent person, so I never would hurt anybody.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he said he knew that wasn't me. So he told me, he said, "Put your arm back up here." He said, "Or I'm gonna get you now." He said, "Don't make me stop this car." So we went on to the hospital. They got me to the hospital, and our hospital had a bad reputation at that time of not having the best doctors and staff. So I ran out into the hallway once they got me back to the room, and I shouted at the top of my lungs that I didn't want to be at that hospital because they had a bad reputation. Well, they said, "Mr. Coleman, come on back in. We're gonna get you some help." Well,
Yeah.
I knew then they were sending me off. So I went to saying, "I'm sorry, I was just playing. This hospital don't have a bad reputation." But that didn't work either. They still sent me to the state hospital.
They weren't buying it. They weren't
They
buying it.
weren't buying it. So they weren't as receptive as the first clinician I'd met.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
So I got sent off
Okay.
that
So you
night
go
by
to the
sheriff.
state hospital, and then what?
Yes, sir. I was transferred to the state hospital by sheriff van.
Okay.
And I tell everybody, I said, it's amazing how God works things out when you're not able to work them out yourself.
Right.
Because that
That's for sure.
night, the sheriff deputy that transported me knew my father. And he knew I was having trouble hearing voices. So he turned the music way up in the sheriff van the whole way to Augusta as we were transporting me. So when I got there, they had me sit in the lobby and they told me the doctor was going to evaluate me. I said, okay. So they come out and they said, "Mr. Coleman, you can come on back. We're ready to evaluate you now." I said, "I can't walk." I said, "I have condition with my legs. I can't walk." I thought they'd let me go. Well, that didn't work
Right.
either. They didn't buy it either.
They
So
didn't buy that.
so they told me, they said, "We can get a wheelchair." I said, "That's all right, I'll walk." So I got up, I walked
Okay.
back to the
Yeah.
doctor's office, and he started doing the evaluation. He got me everything done. He said, "You're gonna have to stay with us for a while till we figure out what's going on, because definitely something's going wrong." So they put me in a men's ward where there was only men. It was probably 20 men. And there was like bedrooms all the way
Wow.
around the room, and we had partners. Each room had two roommates in it. So they took me in, they stripped me of every belonging I had. They took my shoelaces. They said that was a threat to me. I could commit suicide. So they took my shoelaces. They handed me a cup of soap and shampoo, and they said, "Go take a shower. You need to get a shower before you get checked in." So I go to the shower, and I'm sitting here not in my right mind. And I'm thinking they're trying to poison me. So I start drinking the shampoo,
Wow.
gonna finish it off quick.
Okay.
Well, the orderly comes running in. He
Wow.
takes the cup from me. He said, Mr. Coleman, that's shampoo. That's not drink." So he snatches it from me. Well, I went ahead and finished my shower, got ready and everything. And the whole time, my father was a very disciplinarian figure when I was coming up. I tell everybody I got 3 whippings in my life, but I remember all 3 of them and what they were with. So I kept hearing his voice. Every time I would get agitated and angry, I'd hear his voice in my
Yeah.
head, like he was there. So I'd calm back down.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
second day I was there, that's right, sir.
No, say your father's voice helped you calm down,
Yes, sir, it did.
is what I'm gathering. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So the second day I was
Okay.
there, there was another client in the room that went into the laundry room, gonna take some money out of people's pockets, and I witnessed firsthand the orderly throw him out of the room over the couch. And that terrified me. 'Cause I'm like, if they treat us like that, I don't want to be here. So I was scared. But I always say I thank
Yeah,
God
for
how he
sure.
orders things, because he put a guy there that was in there because he had a drug overdose.
Hmm.
And that person was like calm, cool, collective, and he talked to me all the time I was in there. So I would talk with him when I was in the room, and then when visitation would come, my parents would come see me. So when they came to saw me the first time, my mom and dad, they were all upset because they didn't know what was going to happen with me. Mama didn't know if I was ever coming home
Sure.
again. So they come to visit
Sure.
me, and they start to leave, and I made a run for the door. I was leaving with them. Well,
You were
three
trying to go.
orderlies come. Right, I was trying to go. So 3 orderlies come at
Yeah.
me, and I throw them like trash bags. I just toss them. So then the fourth orderly
Okay.
had a shot needle, and he
Yeah.
drugged me. And when he did, I went out, and I woke up on a cot in the main room where all the guys were when I came back to.
Mm.
So
See.
that was
Yeah.
the first time my parents had come to visit me, and that tore mama up because she was like, she didn't ever think I'd be
Mm.
right again.
Yeah.
So they went
Mm.
over next
Yeah.
door, and they had a McDonald's that was right across the road from the hospital. And mama was crying, she was in tears, and she told my dad, she said, I'm gonna pray. She said that's the only thing that's gonna help this matter. So she broke down praying to God, and she told God, she said, "God, if you'll bring my son home out of the hospital, I'll take care of him the rest of his life if I have to." And I
Mm.
tell everybody I'm
Wow.
thankful for that prayer, because that's a sacrificial prayer. She didn't know how I was going to be when I come home, but she was willing to put everything aside to take care of me if she had to for the rest of my life.
Right. Wow.
So I tell everybody I do believe that I'm here because of my mom's prayer and God's blessing.
Yeah.
That I've made a
For
full
sure.
recovery. I've since that day married my wife. I'm finna celebrate our 8th year anniversary on Monday, May 25th. I've got 2 wonderful kids.
Wow.
I've got a daughter that's 16 years old, well, no, 17 years old, and I've got a son that we
Yeah.
adopted at 6 years old.
Wow. That's awesome. This guy that you met in the hospital, that you feel like the Lord put you there, like, what were those conversations with him like?
Like, he asked
What
me,
did
he
he
said,
do
"What
for
kind of
you?
thing," he said, "What kind of things do you like to do?" I said, "Well, I love sports." I said, "I collect memorabilia," and he'd talk to me about that all day. He'd be like, "Who's your favorite team? Who's
Okay.
your favorite player?" And it kept my mind occupied and
Yeah.
off of what was I was going through. So for the first 2 or 3 days, they gave me no medication. They was just observing me to see what was going on.
Wow.
And that
Okay.
drove me crazy by itself because they come bring a cart of
Mhm.
medicine and call everybody up, and I go up and ask them what they got for me, and they like, we don't have nothing for you, Mr. Coleman. So it was 4 or 5 days before I got any medication put in me.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But once they got me on the medication, I started coming around, and then they moved me to what they called it. Well, let me back up for a second. While I was in that ward with all the men, I had a guy try to kill me. He literally come up behind my back and put his hands around my throat, and the orderly
Yeah.
said he's trying to hurt him, and they grabbed the guy and got him off of me. And I would find out later because his dad would come visit him every day when my parents come visit me. So my
Right.
dad asked his dad, what's he in here for? And at first he wouldn't tell my parents what it was, but then later he told them. He said he went to a party one night. He said, and he
Mhm.
set his drink down, went to the bathroom, and somebody put drugs in his drink, and he'll never come home.
Goodness.
So then I felt so sorry and heartbroken for that individual. I forgot all about him trying to kill
Yeah.
me. I just felt bad about it.
Okay. So
All right.
this guy tried to kill you in the hospital.
That's
What was
right.
that like?
It terrified me because, like I said, I was already dealing with fears and being in a new place, not knowing anybody, fearing the staff already, and then to have him try to kill me as well. I'm like, what kind of place am I in?
Right.
When they shut the doors, they locked, so you couldn't walk out on your own. You had to be escorted out.
Oh my
Then I was already
goodness.
dealing with fear, and I look up, and here comes a sheriff deputy walking in with a prisoner in chains
Oh my goodness.
and takes the cuffs off of him and tells him, go ahead. They were turning him over because he had mental health problems and he was from prison.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, so once I got better, they transferred me to what they called a co-ed department where there was
Okay.
men and women.
Yeah.
And when I walked in the door, the staff member told me, Mr. Coleman, go check your room and see if you've got a pillow. So I said, yes, ma'am. So I went and looked at my room. Didn't have a pillow, so I come back and told him, and there was a guy in there. I never will forget this. She told the guy, she said, will you go find Mr. Coleman a pillow? He said, yes, ma'am, I will. So he goes and grabs a pillow, and he comes out with the pillow, and he says, tonight when you go to bed, and he sticks the pillow over his head and says, scared me again.
Oh
Here
my
I am thinking I'm
gosh.
going to be attempted to kill again.
Oh my goodness.
So the orderly said, what did I tell you about scaring new people? He said, I'm sorry, boss, I was just playing.
Oh my god.
So he was getting to go home that day, so he was joking with everybody.
That's like the timing of that joke and what happened to you, not good timing. Like
That's
that
right. Definitely
like that
not.
would be terrifying. Oh my gosh. So I
That's
guess
right.
so when did you eventually get out of the hospital? Like what was that like being discharged and
I was in
what
there
you
for
had to do?
about 10 to 15 days.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I got to go home, and they told me when they released me from the hospital, they said, whatever you do, don't let nobody change your medication because we don't want you to have to come back.
Right.
So I
For
said,
sure.
okay. So I get home with my parents. I'm struggling. I have an appointment coming up, but I run out of medication a day, 2 or 3 days before the appointment. So I called the doctor. I was like, I need a medication refill. They said, we can't give you one. I said,
What?
do what? They said, we can't give you
Yeah.
a refill without you coming in to see us. I
Oh
said,
my
well, I'll come
goodness.
right now. They said, we don't have
Yeah.
an appointment available.
Oh my
So
goodness.
they changed me from a drug called Risperdal, which was for psychosis, and put me on something called Vistaril, which is the equivalent of Benadryl.
I see. Okay.
So I went through a whole gamut of new symptoms.
Oh my
I
gosh. Yeah.
almost ended up in the hospital again. I
Right.
got so paranoid that I went to bed that night and I prayed to God. I said, God, I said, I'm tired of fighting. I said, just take me home. I won't ever ask to wake up again. And this was 5 years before I met my wife.
Right. Yeah.
So I say, I tell everybody, I thank God for unanswered prayers because I would have never met my wife or had any kids had he answered that prayer.
Right. Oh my. So how old were you when you prayed this? What was that? How old were you?
How old was I when I prayed this? It would have been 2004.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yes, sir. That's about 12 years ago. So, and I'm
Okay.
46 now.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I was in my
So
30s, I believe.
okay. Wow. So you pray this prayer and then what? I mean, you're kind
Well,
of
then they
like
finally got me into an appointment with the doctor, and the doctor told me, he said, I sense, Mr. Coleman, you're not being honest with me.
Mm,
And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm terrified." I said, "I'm scared you're gonna send me back to the state hospital, and I don't want to go there
sure.
again."
Sure.
He said, "I'm not here to send you to the hospital, Mr. Coleman." He said, "I'm here to help keep you out of the hospital, but you got to be honest with me." So I started opening up with him, and I told him everything I was going through. And he got me on a drug called Abilify.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I've been on that since that day. And I am fully recovered now. I don't have any symptoms related to my mental health challenges. I was told there was no such thing as recovery, but I've since made a full recovery.
Yeah.
I got to see a whole different world that I had never seen before. My father used to tell people that he thought everybody that had mental health challenges was faking to get a check.
Oh my goodness.
So when he saw me go
Jeez.
through this firsthand, it changed his whole viewpoint. So, and it created compassion in me for a whole group of people that I never understood.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's for
that's what
sure.
led me to become a certified peer specialist. I wanted to help people that dealt with mental health challenges because I had lived experience.
Okay. So, what
So
was that process like to be certified peer
I
specialist?
had to
Like, what
go
was the
through a 2-week training
okay?
for the state of Georgia
Yeah.
where they trained me on how to help people with mental health challenges
Okay.
using my own story.
Yeah. Okay.
So I went through the 2 weeks of training. Then I went to Atlanta to Decatur and took a state test. It was an interview and a test. And then I
Okay.
became certified to work anywhere in the state of Georgia as a certified peer specialist.
Okay. Very nice. So, I guess, like, how does that translate over to, your ministry as a preacher and a speaker? Like, how do you bring that to
I
the
use
table?
that a
What's that
lot
like?
in my preaching and teaching. I use my mental health challenges a lot because of the fact that I think so many people don't understand that area.
For sure. Yeah.
And there's a whole group of people sitting out in a congregation that won't say nothing because they're scared they're going to be mistreated if they tell everybody what's going on.
Right. Right.
Because there's such a stigma with the mental health field.
Yeah, there's a huge stigma with how people are perceived, even going to therapy. Like,
That's
it's
right.
this huge deal. Some people perceive it as just something like that's something crazy people do, or that's something I don't need to do. And I just have a hard time believing that, not that everyone should go to therapy is where I stand at some point in their
Right.
life, either just to talk to
Right.
somebody or or dig into, things that what's going on. And so, my question to you is, as you're preaching and I mean, what are some things that you kind of talk about like from the pulpit or
Right.
either online? What's that like?
Right. The things I hit very heavy is the way people are perceived, especially by news media.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
When you see it in the news, it's usually because somebody shot up somewhere and they claimed it's mental health challenges.
Mm, yeah.
So people scared of people with mental health challenges. They think they're dangerous. But if you look at statistics, 90% of the time, mental health challenged individuals are the victims, not the perpetrators.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because so many people take advantage of mental health challenged people.
Yeah.
And I tell
Yeah.
everybody when I'm in the pulpit, I say, it's okay not to be okay. You should talk to
Yes.
somebody. And I think our greatest purpose is often discovering our greatest pain.
Mm, yeah.
Because I
For sure.
learned that when you have a setback, it's not the end of the world. Your setback is a setup for a comeback.
Yes. So many people have things happen to them and they just think it's over. It's over.
That's right.
Life is over. I give up. Like, and you had every opportunity to do that.
And
Um,
I'll be honest with you, I'll tell you, like, to say that everything is perfect and okay, I'd be lying because I just recently went to a church and preached and called the church, told them I was available if they needed me to come preach again. And you know what they told me? They told me that they had some members that come to the deacon and told him they didn't want me to come back because my testimony was too heavy.
oh my goodness.
So I was rejected at coming back to that church because of my testimony.
Wow. Jeez. I mean, I think we all just need to hear each other's stories and understand where,
That's right.
our resilience comes from and how we recover from that. I'm
That's
curious,
right.
in your story now, where would you say the Lord plays a role in this?
I tell you, the Lord plays a role in my life every single day that I wake up because I learned when I was going through my sickness to find verses that speak to what you're dealing with and claim those verses and memorize them so that you can have them regardless where you're at.
Yes.
My two favorite verses that I consider my life verses is Romans 8:28, which says all things work together for the good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose.
Yes.
And I know that to be true in my own life because everything that's happened in my life's not good,
Mhm. Yeah.
but it all works together for good and to help
Yes.
make me the person that I am today so I can help others.
Yes.
I think
100%.
about the verse in Corinthians where Paul said that we go through pain and turmoil so that we can help others go through pain and turmoil.
Yes. 100%.
And my other favorite verse is Philippians 4:13, which says, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. Those two verses has carried me the whole way. Anytime I got to having irrational thoughts or troubled thoughts, I quote those verses in my head over and over and over till it left.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So if someone, let's just say, you know, hypothetically, someone comes to you and they're going through a hard time and they just need something. What's something you can
Right.
give them? What's something you can say? Somebody
Came up with the
listening.
fuel framework. I came up with
Yes.
the fuel framework not too long ago, and I'll
Huh?
try and break that down and tell you what that's about.
Yeah.
Because that's what helped me get through my trouble too. It deals with four components. The F stands for faith. I tell everybody, I said, if you're not running on the right fuel, you're going to burn out directly. So the fuel framework is what I call it. I call it fuel. I say fuel up so that you can turn your pressure into power.
Mhm.
So the F stands for faith, and that's not just dealing with religion. That's believing something's going to happen before you see it happening, is what I say faith is.
Yes.
For me, it is my faith in Jesus Christ because that's what's carried me through everything. But for some people, they don't have a faith in Jesus Christ. So I say faith is simply believing what you can't see yet.
Yes. 100%.
The next the next letter is the U, and that stands for understanding. If you're not understanding of your situation, you cannot go through something. And if you're not understanding of those around you, you can't help others go through anything. So it all starts once you've got faith, you have to have understanding. The E is for endurance. So many times, I can't tell you how many times I felt like giving up and quitting.
Mm.
But you
Yes.
have to have endurance and push through the painful times to get to the good times. I told you earlier, if it wouldn't have been for God, I wouldn't be here because I prayed to die.
Mhm.
I had
100%.
I had a person try to kill me, like I said.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I thank God that all that was spilled because now I've got a wonderful wife and two amazing kids that I would have
Yeah.
never had otherwise.
Absolutely.
And then the L, sorry, the L stands for love.
Yes.
If you don't have love, it's all for naught
Right.
because I think about 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, the Bible. It
Absolutely.
says the greatest of all these is love. If you've got love, you can conquer many things through love. And I think that's something that our world and our society in general has lost a lot of.
Mhm.
We've got so
Sure.
much hatred and so much division in our world that love has been replaced with hatred.
Mhm.
And
Right.
the Bible's clear if you don't have forgiveness in your heart, He's not going to forgive us.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I'm grateful that I do have a forgiving heart.
Mhm.
I don't hold grudges because I've learned holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting it to kill your enemy.
Right. 100%. 100%.
So when
Yeah.
something happens to me, I let it roll, I pray it and give it to God, and I turn it over to Him.
Yeah. Sure. So
And
I'm cu
I still struggle with fears. Like I have a fear of weather that was put into me from childhood because my grandma used to be terrified of weather. So when we have severe weather
yeah,
outbreaks, I get terrified.
for sure. Yeah. Well, I'm curious,
So I'm
Danny.
still dealing with things.
Yeah, I'm curious, Danny, where does, like, your community come into play? Like, your wife, your family? How do they support
Right.
you through all of this?
My wife has been very supportive, even to the fact that here a couple years ago, I had a doctor give me a drug that I wasn't supposed to take with mental health medication, and it threw me a loop. I got so paranoid that I was scared I would hurt my wife and kids inadvertently. So I called my dad and I said, "Can I come stay with y'all till I get myself regrouped?" And he said, "Come on," because I knew they had seen me go through the worst before. and if I was getting dangerous, they could get me help quick. So my wife was so supportive that she allowed me to go stay over there for a month and a half.
Wow.
And she would come by and see me and call me every day and check on me. And I made recovery from that, was able to come back home, and everything is great now as far as my wife and kids go. And we have a great relationship. I mean, I am very blessed with supportive people. I've got a supportive church that backs me. My pastor called me the other day and told me that he just wanted to tell me that he loved me, that if I need anything from him, let him know. And when I get a church that calls me to preach, he's willing to ordain me. Just let him know.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I'm curious, how important is community when in your life, in your journey? Like, it's hard to do life alone. Like, how would you say, how important is it to have
That's
people
right.
around you? Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
important. I tell everybody, I said, you can't live in isolation and we weren't designed to be.
Right.
God
100%.
designed us for community.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
if you don't have a community, then go out and make your community
Yes.
because you're going to desperately need them one day.
Hmm. For sure. Absolutely. I'm curious to know, a lot of, Christians, other people, there's this like stigma of like anti-medication, like we shouldn't take medication,
That's right.
we can heal
I'm
ourselves.
glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, what do you feel about that?
I think my belief is that God works through many various tools,
Absolutely.
and medication is a tool that God uses. I think about Luke from the Bible. He was a physician. I don't know any physician that don't use medication.
Right. Right.
So
100%.
I and just kind of let you know, I did have that happen in my life as well. When I first come home from the hospital, I was watching a TV evangelist, and he
Mm,
was preaching like you wouldn't believe. And all of a sudden, he stopped and looked at the camera. He said, "If you got faith in God, you don't need medication. You just need to
mm.
pray harder." So I quit taking my meds, and I
Oh my
almost ended up in the hospital again.
oh my goodness. Uh,
And I love
yes.
writing poetry. I tell my pastor all the time, and he's been very supportive of my poetry writing. A lot of time we have homecoming or we have a special service at church, he'll have me come up and read a poem that I write.
Okay. That's
And a lot
awesome.
of times on Wednesday night Bible study, when he's doing the Bible study, I'll take notes and turn it into a poem while he's preaching. And at the end
Okay.
of service, he asks for takeaways, and I'll read the poem out loud to the church. And he's
Okay.
told me before, he said, that's a gift from God because I could never do that.
That's absolutely. How important is that to lean into our gifts the Lord has given us? How important is that to you? How important should we take that?
I think that's very important because I believe every person walking this earth has gifts.
Yes.
And it's important that we find out what our gifts are and lean into them because we can help others through our gifts.
Mhm.
I
For
even
sure.
had a lady tell me just recently when I went to my bank, she asked me, she said, because I told her I wrote some books. I wrote 3 books now.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, have you ever considered writing a devotional book with your poems? And I said, I hadn't really thought about that. She said, you ought to do that. She said, that would help a lot of people. And I believe it would be great.
Yeah.
So I've
For sure.
started working on a 4th book now about poetry.
Okay.
And the name of my book is gonna be called Praises from the Pen.
Praises from the pen. Got you. So you mentioned you wrote a couple of books. Tell us
That's
about
right.
those. Where can we find them? What's the general
Okay.
idea with them? Yeah.
The first book I ever wrote, I didn't actually write it. I used a ghostwriter. And I won't go into details here, but it was a hassle getting it published because of the ghostwriter. But I was able to get it published, and it was like 75 or 80 pages. So it's really short and condensed. So after I wrote a bunch of poetry, somebody said, why don't you write your own story? And the
Yeah.
first book was titled Half the Man I Used to Be with Twice the Heart
Mm,
because I've always been told I have a big heart. And I think that's a lot contributed to because of what I've been through and the compassion I have for others.
yeah. For sure.
So when I thought about the second book, I said, I know I came from a place of devastation. I felt like
Mm,
my world was ending. And now today I can honestly tell you I'm appreciative and in a place of appreciation. So my second book that I wrote was 250 pages, I think it was, or just shy of 200 pages maybe. But it's called From Devastation to Appreciation: How to Turn Tragedy into Triumph.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
both of those books are available on Amazon.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I'll put them in the description of our of this podcast so people can find them.
Okay, great.
So so I would be wondering if someone's listening to this thinking about therapy, medication, they're on the fence about it. Like, what would you say to that person who's in that position listening to this right now?
Tell the person that's in that position to please go get help.
Yes. Okay.
Until you admit that you have a problem and that you need help, it's not going to get better. We can pray, we can talk to people. Some people don't have nobody to talk to. That's like when I was coming up and when I had my mental breakdown, part of what led to my mental break was that I didn't talk to anybody. I bottled it up inside.
Right.
I'd go to work every day, work 8 hours, drive home, cry all the way home because I wasn't happy with the
Mm,
life I was living. I'd get home, I'd wipe the tears away, and I'd go inside. Mom and dad ask, "How are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm great." When I was terrified and crumbling on the inside.
right.
I
Yeah.
knew how to dress up the outside, make it look well, but I was struggling on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many men, especially men nowadays, that's like what we're trained to do is just bottle it up, keep it inside, don't tell anybody, put on a good face, just truck through the day and just spend this time in isolation, keeping stuff like that to ourselves. And I think it's really important what you said there
That's
about
right.
you were by yourself, keeping it to yourself. Would you say like you bottling it up like that, that's kind of like it exploded and that's what led to the breakdown and you going to the hospital? Is that true? Untrue?
Definitely. I
Okay.
definitely say that's what it was. Yes,
For,
sir.
s- for sure.
I would because I come up with a father that was never told his dad loved him.
Mm,
So I never seen my father cry till his mama died. And I was always taught that, crying was a form of weakness. Men don't cry. So I bottled everything up and just kept it inside. I didn't talk to nobody. And I always tell everybody if you bottle up something and it gets shook enough, it's going to explode directly.
yes. I that's so true. It's so true. I mean, we say that. I mean, I say that all the time, and it's so true that if we keep stuff inside, it'll explode, and it
Yes,
could
sir.
explode and hurt somebody or somebody we love.
That's right.
I'm curious, what's it like being a father with all this, with your history and your story? Like, how do you be a father through all of this, and especially in this day and age, and with teenagers and
Yes,
social
sir.
media? How do you do that
Yes, sir. I ain't gonna lie, it's definitely a struggle and it's challenging
for sure?
because my little boy, we think may have some touch of autism because he's the sweetest kid you'll meet. He has a heart of gold, but when he gets angry, angry quick.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
he'll go 0 to 100 in 2 seconds.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But then he'll turn around after it's over and say, "I'm sorry, I love you, and want a hug." So he ain't got control of his emotions yet. And like I said, he's only 6 years old.
Yeah.
And that's been difficult for me because I was raised very disciplined
For sure.
and I'm not an advocate a lot for spanking because I use other means because I'm so terrified that I'm gonna hurt my little boy like I was hurt coming up sometime.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it controls how I parent as a father myself.
Right. Yeah. Uh, yeah. And even with spanking, sometimes it's not even about learning the lesson. They're just trying to figure out how to get out of avoid being spanked. So it's more like they sneak around,
That's right.
in my opinion.
That's right.
So,
And that and I will share one more thing with you that I just thought about because talking about sneaking around is what made me think of it.
yeah.
When I was living at home with my parents, every night when my dad would go to bed, he would tell me he knew I had weight problems and he knew I had food addiction problems. So he would tell me, whatever you do, don't come back in here and get no food. So one night he went to bed and it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. I'd been playing on the computer in my room. So I got up, crept out of my room, snuck through the kitchen, went to the pantry room, left all the lights turned out so I wouldn't get caught. Opened the pantry door, got an ice cream sandwich out of the freezer, closed the door, eased back around the corner, and tore out headed to my room so I didn't get caught, and I hit a carpet cleaner with my leg.
Oh my gosh.
It gashed my leg into a V shape, wide open scar on my leg.
Oh my
It
gosh.
required it required an ER trip, and 48 stitches to fix it.
Holy crap.
I said it fixed everything but my ego because I was ashamed and humiliated.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, especially
But that's
like,
just proof what addiction will do to a person.
yes, that's where we're going. It's like, especially you trying to manage like your eating and your addiction is like sometimes it's just, we get moving too fast and we
Yes, sir.
accidents happen, you know.
That's right.
So a few questions I like to ask near the end.
Okay, and then I got one more thing I want to share with you before we close out about something I'm doing ministry wise for mental health
Please do.
now.
Please do. Please do. Yeah.
Okay. What I've started doing back when COVID hit, I was working for a mental health agency and I got laid off. And I had lost 300 pounds. Well, I gained 100 pounds back because I went into
Mm,
depression. I
yeah.
felt like I couldn't help people if I didn't have a job. I couldn't take care of my family. I couldn't help individuals dealing with mental health challenges. So my wife, again, she was my support. She told me, she said, "You don't have to have a job to help people." She said, "You got a ministry opportunity here that you can help people through the church."
Mm, yeah.
So that's what I did. I sought out curriculum to do a support group for mental health individuals. And I started a group called Living Grace.
Okay. Living grace.
And it's a 16-week program where we cover different topics and we just have roundtable discussion about mental health challenges. And every week is a standalone topic, so you don't have to be there for all 16 weeks. You can come as you want. And I started that under a ministry I started called Hope Ministries. And what that stands for is helping others personally experience peace. Because I think that's what we all ultimately want anyway is peace.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure that'll be super valuable for people listening to be able to look that stuff up.
Yes, sir.
So one big question I like to ask, like, if you are like king of the world and you gather everybody together and they have to listen to Danny Coleman, you know, give a 1 minute speech. This is your one chance to be heard by everybody in the world. What would you say?
Would say, just like automobiles, we all have to have a source for our energy. Automobiles run off of fuel. So you're going to hear me reiterate again. We run off
Yes.
of fuel as well. If we don't have fuel, we're going to be sitting beside the road sooner or later. And I shared earlier, fuel is faith, understanding, endurance, and love.
Mm,
Those 4 areas, if you can get a grasp of those 4 areas and implement them like the Bible tells us we should, it would help us through a many of problems.
mhm, for sure.
And that would
Awesome.
be my advice and what I would tell everybody if I had an opportunity to speak to everyone.
Okay. Awesome. So, you know, are there any like just for other resources, like are there any books you recommend or other podcasts or things you've heard that people can look up and can help them with what they're looking for?
Yes, sir. The curriculum I'm using for my support group is put out by a group called Grace Alliance.
Okay.
The workbooks are free. They're digital workbooks you can download free from their
Okay.
website. And it's called Mental Health Grace Alliance. And they've got workbooks for all different areas. They got one called Living Grace, which is for individuals living with mental health challenges. They got one called Family Grace for family members of people with mental health challenges. They got one called Thrive, which is the second part of Living Grace. It goes more in detail of all the topics. And then they got one called, I think it's a form of Living Grace, but it's not the same name. I can't remember the name of it right now. But it's for youth because we're starting to see more and more youth have problems as well.
Right. For sure. Absolutely. Okay. Any podcasts you recommend?
Some of the
Any?
best podcasts that I've benefited from is more preaching podcasts, but they also cover mental health in the podcast as well.
Okay.
And one of those is Lake Point Church. I love to
Okay.
listen to Lake Point Church.
Late Point Church.
That's Josh Howerton for anybody that don't know that who that is, but he's got a lot of stuff on YouTube. He preaches every Sunday at Lake Point Church, and every Monday he releases a podcast that goes more in detail of what he couldn't cover in his Sunday sermon.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. Well,
So that's a
Danny.
great resource. Another great resource is
Yeah.
Harris Creek
Hmm.
Baptist Church. That's another good one.
Okay.
That's helped
Gotcha.
me out greatly.
Okay. Okay. Well, cool, man. Danny, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and helping us, how do we, build resilience, recovery, and hope. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you being here and sharing that with us.
Danny reminded us that healing is not pretending everything is fine. Healing starts when we stop hiding, stop bottling everything up, and finally tell the truth about where we are. You showed us that mental health struggles do not disqualify someone from purpose. In many ways, the pain you walked through became the very place God used to build compassion, ministry, and hope in you. And I love your fuel framework: faith, understanding, endurance, and love. That is such a practical reminder that we all need something deeper to keep us going when life gets heavy. For anyone listening today, I want you to hear this clearly. Your setback does not have to be the end of your story. The fact that you are struggling does not mean you are weak, it means you are human. And asking for help is not a lack of faith. Sometimes it is one of the most faithful things you can do. Talk to someone, be honest, build community, use the tools God has placed in front of you. That may include prayer, scripture, counseling, medication, support groups, family, church, and people who can walk with you when you feel like you cannot walk by yourself. Danny's story reminds us that devastation can become appreciation, pressure can become power, and pain can become purpose. Thank you for listening to Rooted and Real. If this episode encouraged you, share it with someone who needs hope today. And remember, you're not alone. Your story is not over, and there is still purpose on the other side of what you have been through. This is Rooted and Real with Keenan.